Welcome to Restaurant Catering Smarts, your go-to podcast for restaurateurs looking to better operate and grow their catering profit centers. With every episode, you can count on expert advice, innovative strategies, and tasty tips straight from industry leaders. Our purpose is to help your business thrive. So, let's dig in to another juicy episode.
Hello again. I am Michael Attias, your host of Restaurant Catering Smarts, and today's guest is Erle Dardick, a seasoned entrepreneur and founder of Monkey Media Software, the Catering Institute, and the Off-Premise Growth Academy, and I'm sure there's more to add in there, like his Deli we'll talk about. With over 2 decades of experience, Erle helps restaurant operators thrive in the off-premises dining environment by integrating innovative technology and strategies. As a thought leader in the industry, he continues to inspire businesses to optimize their catering and delivery operations in a constantly evolving landscape, and we're excited to have him on the show today. But before we get into asking Erle a bunch of questions, let's take a minute to recognize our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by CaterLinked Catering Software, the industry leader in helping restaurants turn their catering chaos into calm. Discover why top independent and enterprise restaurants trust CaterLinked to save them time and increase their catering sales. Go to www.caterlinked.com. Erle, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Michael. I'm great. I'm just like, why am first of all, before we, there's 100 centimeters of snow coming on the mountain starting tonight.
So you're going to be skiing all weekend?
It's going to be a week. This is like a week. This is like, I've been waiting all season for this week. So I'm just like,
this is your Christmas?
I do my best thinking and sort of like, when I'm up in the mountains and I'm skiing, I'm in nature, I'm on Whistler and I'm doing my thing. It's really a meditation, so it's like totally like, connecting to nature. I find my nervous system is dialed all the way down.
That's how I feel at the beach. And, I used to ski. I'm not very good anymore, but I had a friend whose dad had a place in Park City. Yeah. And when you get on top of the mountain and it's snowing, and that snow muffles everything out. Like it is just so zen and peaceful. And I'm not a woo-woo person. I'm just woo. And same thing with the beach. When I go to the beach or I take a nap on my day bed and just hear the waves crashing, it's like I feel like 30 pounds is off my shoulder. Totally. But when I come back to Nashville, it's like, well, if I didn't have to come home for business, I don't know that I ever return. So, and nothing against Nashville, but it's...
No, I understand. Well, maybe it's part of our age too, right? So where we are, so...
Yeah.
I don't know how old you are, but maybe I think I'm older than you. I don't know.
You look older because of your gray hair.
Yeah,
we're probably the same. I'm 59.
Yeah, we're the same age then.
When do you turn 60?
Next February. I just had my birthday.
Oh, so I am older. Mine's in April. My kids are taking me to Napa for my 60th.
This April?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, there you go. Next month. Congratulations.
But I identify as 42, and I'm going to petition the Supreme Court to change my legal documents.
All right. I think you should.
Okay, I know we've got a lot to cover. Why don't you give everybody a quick background? And, we have very similar backgrounds, the food to the tech. So why don't you give everybody a high level and then we can dig into some meat and potatoes.
Yeah. Okay, sure. I'll start. Maybe in 1996, I bought a deli. Okay. I was a young entrepreneur. I was 30 years old. I had a young family starting. This was in Vancouver, British Columbia. It was called Tony's Deli. It had been there since 1972. So I don't remember how many years, but 30, 40 years. And it was gone through several hands. And there was a guy named David that actually owned the deli, and he was a great entrepreneur and a wonderful in the kitchen and just put out great products. And Tony's developed this great reputation. And David, as he wanted to expand this business, he went and got a commissary and he started doing all these things. And sure enough, he found himself to be in a little hot water. His strong suit was in creating. He wasn't so strong administratively or business-wise. And I became his business partner in the deli. And in that process, we identified that catering was a huge opportunity. This is 1996, Michael. So this is we're running a Uniwell cash register, in the deli. And the format was, you walk up to a display case. We had sandwiches, salads, desserts. Salads were done by weight. Sandwiches were done by what we call the round. That's maybe another podcast. And then we had coffees and sweets and all that kind of stuff. And then, you'd pick it out of the deli case. It was either a fresh sandwich or it was one for the grill. And we would put it on the panini grill. In those days, you couldn't even get panini grills. We brought them in from Italy and off we went. And Tony's became reputable, like within the context of retail transactions. People were coming in the front door. David had been very successful in getting some press coverage and getting the brand, and the food was great and the service was good, and it was a cool place in Vancouver. And so I got involved as the business guy that came in to help David to clean up his situation, which was quite difficult. So we rolled the assets into a new company, started from the beginning. I took on all the vendors and suppliers, and David owed all this money, and I worked with them, and we paid everybody back, and it was a very slow process. And that was my entrepreneurial beginning in the food business. And so in that process, catering became obvious to me. And I came from a business to business background, so it was comfortable for me. And we started on the floor, shaking hands, kissing babies, hey, do you cater? Do you cater? Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, sure, we can do that. 100 people, no
Shaking
problem.
babies, kissing mothers. I get it. It's funny. Were you in B2B sales before?
Yeah, always in my whole life, my whole life.
It's very funny. I'm not going to mention the name, but a very, very big franchise company. I was on the phone with the person who handles off-premise and catering, and we were talking about, like, I can't tell you how many times I've consulted for chains, and I said, if you're going to look for a franchisee, look for a guy that used to sell B2B in their previous life and wants a business. Let them go out and pound the streets. They'll bring in another couple $100,000 in catering, and they'll pay for the guy watching the register making the sandwiches all day long, and your unit economics will be through the roof. But for some reason, they'd rather hire somebody who thinks, if I write a check and put the clown on the door, it will come.
Well, we'll talk about that a little more, because it's all dovetailing into, I think, what needs to happen. But ultimately, Tony's Deli became this sort of experiment, if you will, and the turnaround of it. It was a distressed deli. We started to fix it. We used catering as a strategy. Our point of sale system wouldn't work for catering, so we had a piece of, we had paper, right? And then we had Kate. Kate was like, or Sarah, sorry, before Kate was Sarah. Sarah was like, we made her the catering leader, Sarah.
Oh, no, we had Gail.
Poor Sarah. And we were very manual in the back end of this thing. And then we engineered really what was the workflow, which was, order entry, which was, orders, QuickBooks invoice. We had a delivery logbook that was like, I had 8 columns, because I was running trucks and all this stuff. And we had all this columns. Anyways, all manual. And there was a web developer in my building doing web-based animation in the mid-90s, doing upstairs in the building. And he would come downstairs and we'd talk, and he'd go, "What the hell are you doing here? This is crazy." I said, "Well, we have bootstrap deli. We had no money to buy a server in those days. Was like $25K, and I didn't have money for that." So he said, "Oh, I'll just put you up in this hosted environment. We just rented web space, $25 a month." And
it's very funny. So, very similar story.
It's amazing.
It's not, I had the idea for CaterZen. Originally, it was Restaurant Catering Systems, and people go, "Oh, you have a catering business, you have a restaurant." So we changed the name, and then we needed to be a little bit more agnostic. But when I was waiting tables at Corky's in college, I'd sit rolling silverware upstairs, and they had 3 women on the phone taking orders. They blew out. Like on a Friday, they'd have 10, 15 drop-off orders and huge picnics for thousands of people. And what would happen is every single time somebody would call, "What's your name? What's your company? What's your address? What's your credit card?" All this stuff. And then the manager would sit for an hour at the end of the day and take all the tickets and add up how many pounds of pork, how many pounds of beef. And at the time, I had a friend, he was in his 40s, he owned some jewelry stores, total genius guy, used to work on Wall Street. He taught himself how to program in DBase 3+, and he wrote this entire system for his jewelry store with even printing the little tags for the rings.
I remember.
And I used to sit and think, if I knew how to program in DBase 3+, I could write a program for them and eliminate all this headache. So I literally sat on that idea for like 22 years.
Genius.
Yeah. Overnight success after 40 years. That's what I've got. So, I mean,
so we're in this process, right? We're chipping away. And I was in the pursuit of making a great deli, Michael. I saw catering as the force multiplier that would be the turnaround of the deli. It was absolutely the way to go. While we maintain our core business, of course, we had to do that, right? So, that was where the energy was coming from, But the subtleties inside that deli in terms of running it and running it in the context of how to maximize it for catering, all the functions, features, ideas got baked into the tech over time. Right. And so we did that for 5 years. So fast forward like 1996 to 2001, 9/11 happens. Tech sector blows up. The world changes. Stock market crashes. Pullback on catering. I don't know if you remember it. Big pullback on catering. I'm sitting in my deli going, man, but the deli was doing, now it was doing 2.3 million a year in sales. It was generating 1.2 million in cash flow. This was a very profitable little business.
Wow.
It was chaotic. We bought the business next door. We had 8 trucks running out the back, and it was a catering machine. I mean, half my business was catering at that point. I actually changed the name to Tony's Deli and Catering Company. And I often tell people that they should do that because, Panera, imagine it was like Panera Bread and Catering Company. Can you imagine? Like
Their sales would spike 5% overnight.
through the roof, but there's like conceptually, they just can't get there. But anyways, we'll talk, we can dissect that a little later. But anyway, so that was the model that developed, and we had this tech in the cloud that was running. It was a separate business. We bought the commissary next door. We were in high volume production in primarily B2B transactions. And 9/11 happened. Catering dipped off maybe 30-40% overnight. It was fast. The recovery was much quicker. And that was where I pivoted. I started going on, and my buddy said to me, Earl, you're the most advanced deli in the world. You got to show people this tech. I'm going like, it never works. And this, and the drill. I'm going like, it goes down. I mean, this is like early, right?
Yeah.
Try and get someone on the phone to reboot the server somewhere, like, forget it. It was tough times. Anyway, so I pivoted. I showed what I thought was a competitor of mine, and that was unique. It was called the Spectra Great River Restaurants. As a matter of fact, this is my first handwritten contract. Look.
Oh my God, that's cool.
That's Monkey's first contract. Okay.
Yeah. Oh wow.
And here's what was interesting, Michael. Oh, they had a brand called the Bread Garden, which had like 17 stores, and they were a public company that had other brands as well, and they were partners with bigger public companies. Long story short, they wanted to retreat back to the fast casual brand, and they were selling everything else. They were getting out. And this was a reinvestment back into that brand. But what they had was a commissary that was in Vancouver that was feeding their 17 cafes,
right,
and also feeding 500 gas stations every day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they were using a product called DataPax, which was an old, and so they asked us if we could replace that. And we took on that project. That's what that project was. And it wasn't catering. It was actually commissary.
So in the beginning, were you commissary management?
Yeah. So we were in commissary.
Did you work with Bread and Company out of Nashville?
Yeah, John.
Yeah, I remember they used you back in the day. They had
Monkey
I don't know what happened to them. Their food was like killer.
Listen, there's a genre of Michael London bakeries, they're called.
Yeah.
Michael London is the baker with the recipes. There's if you look at the artisan bread business, I spent a lot of time in there, like with guys like Steve Sullivan, like early artisan bread guys in San Francisco, Acme Bread Company, early ones. Central Bread Company, Grand Central, all of this on the West Coast, because my journey became, I had a successful commissary. I went down to Seattle, and I ended up in the bakery and commissary space. That's what happened. And it wasn't until I got to 2005 when I landed on Boudin Bakery, because Dave Wolfgram was running it, and he came out of Corner Bakery. And they had 21 retail locations with catering going out of everywhere. They had 2 wholesale bakeries in San Francisco, and they had a mail order fulfillment house. And they gave us a project, and they said, we want you to do the mail order. It's called Monkey Mail Order. We wanted you to do the 2 bakeries, which we did. We wanted you to do our catering business, and we want you to integrate with Micros because we want you to do our takeout.
Oh, God.
So we took all that. Okay. And it was successful. It's still going, by the way, still running.
Wow.
So we were in all this back end of these like multi-unit restaurant operators in the genre where they maybe had centralized kitchens feeding themselves, Yeah. Okay. That's where we were. And off we went. And then we continued on. And then 2007 was the defining moment, because that's when we brought on Einstein Brothers Bagels. It was our first national account. It was about 500 locations. They just wanted the catering piece of it. So we stepped back. We looked at our product, which was B2B food manufacturing. We went all the way deep into supply chain management, purchasing, inventory, recipes, formulas.
Wow.
Yeah, it was deep. Okay.
How many developers did you have?
3, 4 in those days. It's fast. It was just like a total creative explosion of just.
And you're like me, you don't you're not the tech guy, right? You don't
No,
program at
I'm the
all.
guy that I'm the business guy, and
You're the idea guy.
yeah, and the logic, like the business logic inside the
Yeah.
tech is my
And it's
designs,
a good thing we don't know how to program because
Yeah,
we would have worked 24 hours. I'm
yeah.
glad I can't program.
My head already exploded. And so yeah, so we ended up in this space, and then in the pivot was when we stepped back and we stripped the product back. That's where Mo came in. This is 2007. Mo was the best thing that ever happened to me because he was the one that took like 40 different code bases. And it was like, we need one
And
code
cleaned 'em up.
base. And that was the Einstein's project.
I gotcha.
Yeah. And that became just like sales, ordering, accounting, production, delivery, right? Integrated into their ecosystem. And that became the future of Monkey. And what was interesting about it was early and nobody understood what we were doing very well. So that fast forward 3 years, and then I just wrote this book. We all have a book now. Okay. So the book was, I got so tired of explaining it like you do, Michael, but my focus was on multi-unit restaurant executives because I saw the opportunity for what was, if you have 1,000 restaurants, it's like having, it's no different. You have one
Right.
restaurant or 1,000, it's the same. It's just scaled up, right? So, so that was the birth of the Catering Institute, which became the force multiplier in the whole thing. Okay, so then fast forward, did conferences, did all that. 2019 had an Exit Easy Cater. Sorry, it's so long. But Exit Easy Cater.
No, it's okay.
And then I left there. I tumbled for a while. I had one, but emotionally, I experienced a loss. It took me a while to work through that.
It's like a divorce or a death. I mean,
it was hard. It was hard, like emotionally difficult. And then the pandemic happened. I mean, so much of me was tied to that, like 23-year journey of just like every day, like, you're obsessed about it. It's so part of who you are. When it's gone, in my case, I sold it to a company that didn't want me around anymore, which I knew. And so it was a bit of kind of that kind of thing. Anyway, so I ended up then doing some work. I was invited to be the general manager of catering at Olo. I did that for a while. It was interesting. Got a good insight, view of like what does the online ordering world look like as it relates to catering, and like what is the gap, which is big, and we can talk about all that stuff too, comprehensive versus non-comprehensive solutions. And then my recommendation for them was to take a break because they were just acquired wisely. They had a lot of stuff going on. They need to get through all that stuff and then come back at it, which they're, of course, they're doing. And then I was invited by Lunchbox to come and kind of run the same process there. And that was just a different thing. It was a company at a different stage, wasn't ready for me, I don't think. I wasn't ready for it. It wasn't what I was personally looking for. And they're trying to find their way. And, again, online ordering company trying to figure all that out. And that became the epiphany for me, which was about a year ago, which was I realized that the biggest gap in my life in this entire thing was the connections, like what we're doing now. It's the friendships, it's the conversation, it's the trading of ideas, which is really what I was missing. And so I took on the workshop. I did the Restaurant Catering Workshop last year and the birth of the Off-Premises Growth Academy. And that led to this digital community we're creating called CaterLinked. And my vision of that community is that it's peer group oriented and people are learning from each other. It's a no selling zone. It's meant to really try and create some authentic conversations because I believe that the truth is within, like, people know what's going on. And I think like the companies that are doing really good work and really good quality are not scared of that because they have really good solutions and they actually want that conversation. Okay. And everybody else that's saying they have it, but they don't. Okay. They need to be sort of called out in the process and they can catch up by all means, please. I mean, continue chipping away and investing and working, but there's big differences between catering technology, you know that more than anybody, but
sure.
Yeah. So that's basically where I'm at. And I'm really having fun now. Because, health, work, play, love, all in place in my life. My work was a gap, it was hard for a bit. And now I feel like it's in a good spot. Yeah.
So you're sort of in the grandfather phase instead of the father phase. Like
Totally.
you can show up, have fun with the grandkids, and then get back to skiing or doing what you want.
Or Costa Rica. We'll come hang out.
Come see me. I'm going down for 2 weeks. I leave on the 18th.
I'm going to wait for your successful exit so we can celebrate down there.
We can celebrate. Well,
Well, listen,
I don't.
every entrepreneur, you're not going to live forever, like you're not. So,
120.
yeah, okay, fine.
That's
But
on my goal board. I think
yeah,
with science technology, I'll get there. Now
maybe
everybody might kill themselves with AI, and we can talk about AI in a minute. That's a whole nother. I've been obsessive.
every entrepreneur has a fiduciary duty to its shareholders to find a way through. So,
Yeah, I have 2 kids too. We'll see. Right now, like
family
I
business.
enjoy, like I could have a development team of 5,000 people because
I
like
know,
my
I know,
head doesn't stop,
I know, I know.
and there's just more and more stuff. So I'm loving the hell out of that. So I mean, look, I'm newer to the enterprise space, and you've been working in this space, and you've seen like all the cast of characters, right? It's like the heroes and the supervillains. What differentiates the winning brands, and I'm going to call the losing brands? The ones that
You
really,
mean at the operator level?
yeah, like
Yeah,
Moe's Southwest
yeah,
Grill,
yeah, yeah.
they
Okay.
crush it, and somebody else, you
Hmm.
know, they just get what the phone rate brings in, right? Or what
Yeah,
Easy Cater
yeah.
gets them online, right? They're not really. What do you see as some of the big
It's a great question,
challenges?
Michael. For me, it really starts on the executive team, to be honest. It's all to do with what is the vision of the brand? And is catering core to that? And do you understand what that means? Because people don't understand what it means to have catering core to the strategy and embedded inside a multi-unit restaurant environment in the enterprise space. And you're seeing this now because I know you're working with Tzatziki's and some people like you're getting the experience, which is,
Right.
you know, basically the dynamic is depending on whether or not you're a franchisor or if you're corporate. Okay. Sometimes you're a hybrid of both, right?
Right.
Sometimes even under the system, the franchisor system, there's a franchisee that's corporate. They have 100 stores. That happens,
Right.
right? And so it begins at the strategy, which is like, what do you want to do here, guys? Do you want to offer centralized services to your franchisees? Do you want to control the experience? I've been in the biggest brands in the world, okay? And I can tell you, I don't know what it is now. I'm sure it hasn't changed much, but in those days, like catering got away because franchisees needed to survive, and there's stores that don't do necessarily well, and so they went off and did catering on their own while the franchisor didn't support them or they didn't have a program for it, right?
You know, it's funny. So the guy that used to sell me Southern Pride smokers, his son was a manager for some barbecue. They had 20, 30 locations. And his dad did a lot of barbecue catering out of Brownsville, Tennessee. And he asked his dad, he goes, "Hey, can I borrow some of your Cambros?"
Yeah.
And that's how he turned around his fledgling operation,
Totally.
but no support from corporate or anything, right?
Right. They
And
don't get it. They don't get it. So anyway, so what has to happen is like the brand, like when I look at a brand and I see, let's talk 100 locations just for argument's sake. I mean, you know, I look at a Monday to Friday business. Maybe you see it differently. Like the event catering business, let's just agree it's over there. Okay. Like that's just an anomaly. It's like if you want to do events, great. It's another business. Okay.
right,
You need another leader for it. It's got a whole different work process. You want to go, but what we're talking about is restaurants. And this is really important because catering out of restaurants is a unique problem to restaurants.
right,
And here's the challenge restaurants don't understand is that they're getting their asses handed to them, if you will, not against each other, but you've got like convenience stores, okay, that are setting up commissaries and they're doing deals with DoorDash, Uber Eats, and all those guys. And they're basically restaurants. 7-Eleven is running a whole
right.
restaurant program, okay? So this is like the differentiation time and segmentation of markets. This is about getting back into your communities and providing more services to your fans of your brand. And the differentiation between those channels is what's critical. And that is a complex dynamic that lives at the brand level, who's accustomed to billboards, television advertising, to drive traffic, couponing, right? They
Right.
don't understand the concept. You actually have to have a database. You need B2B sales teams. You got to go be knocking on doors. You got to do sampling. What do you mean invoicing? What's an accounts receivable? Like it's conceptually not even in their DNA. Okay. Like that's the thing. So you asked me the question, what do I see? The brands where the sponsorship was at the ownership level, catering was, and they invested in the strategies, made the right investments, and then put in the behaviors and policies and procedures within the context of their operations. As time has gone on, they are performing at the top. Okay. So we can name a whole bunch of people. I mean, Mike Axiotis, for example, over at Lehigh Valley is 26 units. He's a Red Robin franchisee, and within the Red Robin system, he's performing like double everybody else, But he did it, In those days, he put in Monkey, he did all the integration work, he did all the training, he set up a sales team, and he said to me a while ago, he said, Earl, if not for the work we did with you guys in all those years leading up to the pandemic, we would have been out of business.
Right.
Okay.
So
yeah.
why do you think there's not a secret in the world anymore, right? You
No.
could look and see here's 50 guys that are crushing it. Why are the other guys sitting on their hands and going?
Because it's big. It's big. It's so big that it requires a chief catering officer in the boardroom.
Does anyone have that yet?
No.
I know you've been advocating for that.
Yeah, I'm pushing. As a matter of fact, CaterLinked is all about that because that leader is sitting within the context of our community.
Right.
And it's ridiculous in my mind, especially at scale. Okay. You're talking 1,000 restaurants. I didn't give you the math. We were talking about math before at 100 restaurants. At 100 restaurants, it's 360,000 a year in a incremental bump to your restaurant based on 4 orders a day. It's like, average order. But I mean, maybe your data is different. This is data coming through. We should ask you your data. Like what is the average order size? How many orders a day? Should a store expect? And we could do that. And I can tell you, when you take 360,000 and you multiply it by 100, it's $36 million.
Right, and it's half the profit.
Well,
so you would think that half the profit for a brand, you should have somebody with a seat at the table.
But let's talk about why it's half the profit. And this is so important because it lives in the context of restaurants. And the restaurants, the infrastructure is already sunk. And you've already got labor in the restaurants. And so they're just busier,
Right.
So their labor, right? Okay. So you and I get that. That is very hard to translate into a plan for execution across a multi-unit restaurant executive where you have private equity ownership, you have this, you have that, there's a lot of ivory tower stuff happening in our industry where it's like, but the lift is so positive, but it does take time. It is an investment. So if I said to you, Michael, look, you've got 150 restaurants, okay? Let's say 50 of them never do catering. There's 100 that do, okay? And we want to do it that way. And we modestly look at 4 orders per location, per day. Monday to Friday. It's 20 orders. It's 20 orders a week. It's like not a big deal, right? You and I know that. Okay. And if we look at that as incremental on top of the existing operation, then, we're looking at this $36 million centralized business, right? So you need to put a team in place to manage that business unit within the context of this restaurant. And the reason why it's half the profits is because of the flow through, which is
right. It's all in. You're just paying food and packaging and credit card processing.
You have a small incremental increase in your overhead maybe, but you do have some capital you got to invest. You got to put in tech. It's a capital investment, takes time.
Packaging, marketing, and human capital for sales and marketing.
You might need trucks. Like, what's your delivery strategy? Maybe you'll use third party, you'll outsource, great CSP, but maybe you want to keep one van for yourself and you'll do big orders,
Do you think it has to do with, when you're growing a brand, it's always like, how many units? We're going to add 10 units. We're going to add 50 units. We're going to do 100. And so they see it, their math is units, where I see it is, I've made this investment. How do you maximize ROI? Because the people I was talking to today, $750,000 to build a QSR. And it's like, and they're not even doing $1 million a year in volume. WTF, doesn't make sense.
Oh my God. It's about leveraging the brand. And this is another great conversation of virtual brands versus these brands. Listen, the brands that you and I are talking about right now are the most powerful brands in America, Michael.
Right.
And so we don't underestimate that because that has decades of memories and emotions attached to it, right? Like I remember going back as a kid and going to places on Ponderosa Steakhouse. I don't know if it was in the US or not, but.
Yeah, for sure. Steak and all the shrimp you can eat.
That was the birthday
when
dinner.
You're in college and broke, that's a big night out.
$8.99. In those days, $8.99 was a lot of money. So, But those are memories. If somebody came to me today and said, hey, there's a Ponderosa steak catering program and it's made up of steak sandwiches and some great,
Yeah.
caprese salads and whatever, and somebody reinvented it and was delivering out of a commissary, I would order it because I have birthday memories. It's like,
Yeah.
so the power of the brand.
Shaggy's Pizza will bring
There
a
you go.
piano
There you
player
go.
out.
Yeah. So the power of the brand is really why restaurants have this opportunity. Okay.
Oh, they have such an upper hand. And if you're going to get Mexican, wouldn't you rather get it from a Mexican restaurant than go to a generic caterer that may or may not do it well, or barbecue or Italian, or there's so many advantages.
There's so many. And so the trick is you have to step back and look at the brand, look at the experience, see what's executable. You have to create menus that are different from your in-store menus. And you have to create your menus, okay, in the best interest of your kitchen production. So you actually need to reverse engineer, start at the manufacturing process, see what's easy.
Right.
And
For
then,
sure.
Yeah.
And there's people that I tell, like, hey, this doesn't really travel well, but here's a way you could make it travel well, or, so there's definitely some stuff.
Yeah.
I know we're a little tight on time, and
we're okay. We're good. We got good solid.
We
10
got
minutes.
3 days. No,
we can do it. We can do more sessions.
Yeah, we'll have you back on for sure. Let's pivot to AI, because 5 years ago, actually I had a friend 20 years ago was talking to me about AI. He's one of these computer geeks. He's on his third, fourth tech startup. He codes, and I didn't even know what the hell he was talking about. It was Greek. And now, maybe 5 years ago, I said, one day AI will get to where the AI is taking the phone order. And probably even better, it's going to know, your psychological profile. Are you analytical? It's like, give me the facts. Are you emotional and going to ask you about your hobbies and your kids and the weather? And are you going skiing? It's going to know where you are. Earl, hey, I see that you're getting dumped on. Are you going skiing tomorrow? And you're going to think like, oh my God, this is the best thing since sliced white bread.
Totally.
That's coming. It's not there, but it will come.
Yep.
What's your take on AI?
In what content and how it's going to impact
Just in the catering space, do you see anybody doing it? Where do you see opportunity? I can tell you where we're working, but I want to get your take on where you see it.
I think that here's the thing, like, all these technologies become disruptive, right? It's like that's the thing. It's like everybody's moving more towards, seamless, frictionless, that kind of thing. I would say software as a service, like that's a threat there. Like it's got to watch AI. Like but maybe what will happen is the AI will just come around it. And the SaaS thing will always be the core of it, and then things are happening around it probably. But I'm always like, what's lurking in the background is the question, right? Is like.
So I had this conversation, and I don't know. Again, I don't have anything to base this on except years of experience and just sort of spitballing. So, if you're a big company and you bring in SAP, you have consultants from the Big Four. My daughter-in-law is consultant with the Big Four. And they basically interview you, right? They're going to get all the information out of you because you don't even know what to ask yourself, right? Mm-hmm. So I see in the future, you will have an AI consultant and it will build software for you based on your unique needs, right? So Tony's Deli is different than Corky's Barbecue is this. So literally, if you have 1,000 brands, it will be 1,000 different personalized versions based on your workflow, the colors, where you want your fields. Maybe you have some idiosyncratic because
are you working on that stuff yet, or it's not there yet?
You want to find me some backers, because I think that will be disruptive. There will be 2 or 3 brands that do that, not only in catering but every business.
Well, I would say, look, if you want to find backers, Michael, that's not going to be a problem for you. You're a horse in the race. If that's the strategy you want to go at, you should think about that. But I would say that fueling up your AI investment is a very good idea. What am I seeing out there? I am diving deep into agentic AI. I don't know if you spent any time on that, but so what I'm learning is that there's agents that are getting created. It's called an AI agent. It's agentic AI, and an agent is task oriented. So it does a task, or it could be a few tasks, but a task. And so when I look at software as a service and I see sales, let's just talk about CRM as an example.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a module, let's say. Order entry is a module.
Right.
Okay? Accounting module, production module, okay, and delivery module. Forget about the data for a minute. I'm talking workflow, okay?
Right.
And so what I'm seeing are agents that are starting to displace pieces of what was a manual order entry process, okay, in our space. So whether it's voice that's now hooking right into order management, hitting point of sale, or drive-through is a good example, is an example of an agent, okay? So the theory is, and here's the big, nobody knows this yet, so we're gonna learn, but I think maybe this is where it's going, is that it's possible that the next generation of tech for catering, and all tech really, okay, is threading together these AI agents
To all do separate
tasks.
specialized functions within. So it could be like, hey, this agent responsible for logistics and scheduling the drivers, whether it's internal, third
And
party,
it
based
talks
on
to the sales.
and knows Earl's got a van, Michael's got a Honda Civic, Michael
Yeah,
can take orders of this size, so it's going to be
exactly.
highly
Exactly.
and
Now imagine this. Okay, let's fast forward 10 years, let's just say, okay? There's no reason why the AI agent that's responsible for production can't communicate to a robot.
oh, the robots will be making it. There's no
Okay.
doubt.
So like Chipotle is already deep in that investment, salad robots. I show you, we can spend so much time on this stuff. It's fun stuff.
It is cool.
But there's a company called Hyphen that they've invested big money in, you know, and this is, look it up, Hyphen. I think it's called Hyphen. Just Hyphen Chipotle investment. Because they've got a venture fund for this stuff. And it's fascinating. It's robotic salad production is what it is. And so there's no reason why the production AI agent can't give it the instructions it needs to receive. And that AI agent is being fed and information and communicating with the order entry agent, who's communicating with the AI sales agent. And each of those agents are working 24 hours a day. Okay. So the sales agent is prospecting. It's literally scraping the internet. It's looking for all the law firms with more than 25 people in Dallas.
They're scraping. Lunch will be provided.
Right.
Nashville, Tennessee.
Totally.
You know, everything.
They're looking. We can use the agentic AI to look at unstructured emails. We can give an instruction to an AI agent as a company to look at all the company emails and find every single thing that mentions catering.
Right.
And move it into a structured database so we can actually interpret it, understand it, and take some action against it. That's happening now. Salesforce is doing that already. EasyCater's already in a partnership agreement with them. Go check it out. It's agentic. Just look up Salesforce. I mean, offline, send me a note. I'll find it for you and I'll send you a link.
That's cool. We're working with a voice company.
Yeah.
And we're going to pilot a test.
Yeah.
So basically, they have like an answering service.
Yep.
That's AI.
Yep.
And we can have 99 different catering prompts. So how much notice do you need? Do you have something for vegans? Whatever. And it sounds like you're talking to a real person.
Yep.
And as opposed to getting a voicemail, and everybody hates freaking voicemail. Am I going to get a call back?
It's terrible.
And what we want to do is we want to take that information, right? Whether it's a lost call or whether it's, we can take what questions did Earle ask, right? He asked these 5 questions, and we'll have a dashboard that says, we missed a call from Earle. He's a customer, not a customer. Here's his phone number.
Great.
And then we have VoIP in our system. So I can tell if somebody called Earle back because there's a recording attached to Earle's name, right?
Yep.
And then when I call back, I know why you called. So I can say, hey, I see you called about birthday parties or whatever, right? And then I can pen sales data that says over the last quarter, all these missed calls, did they monetize and to what extent, right?
Great. That's great.
So
Those are great tools,
that's
Michael.
the thing we're trying to,
you'll get there. You'll get there. I think for sure. I mean, the tools are getting easier. Yeah.
You'll like this story. So I was doing a training session for a big brand, and I asked the salespeople, what's your biggest pain point? They go, they want them to go out there and knock and sample 10 doors a day, and goes coming back at the end of the day and putting business cards in the software and putting in the notes and all that. And I said, oh, we've got on a drawing board, we're going to do a business card scanning software. And I said, but there's this thing I see on Instagram, Plot AI, where you can dictate. And I said, hold on a second. So I took out my phone, I took ChatGPT, and I literally said, I need you to create a spreadsheet for data entry, and here's the fields. It messed up the fields. It put first and last name as one field. I said, no, split it up. And then I want you to add group, I want you to add note, and I want you to add follow-up task. I literally, in front of the whole group, I dictated 3 prospects, so you could do it on your way to your car. Totally. I sent the file to the guy on the computer, and in 2 seconds, he appended everything in.
It's amazing.
In the CRM. So saving him 45 minutes without us programming it in. Just say, use your ChatGPT and hack it.
Totally. It's amazing. Yeah. Talk about ChatGPT. Do yourself a favor. I prompted a little while ago. I said, give me a comparison on functionality between CaterZen, MSI, Flex Catering, Olo. Go do that.
I can do you one better. So we're working with One Goal Consulting. They're like the manufacturer's rep of tech. Huh? Yeah. So one of his guys says, hey, my client is looking at Catery, Spoon-Fed, something else, right? Can you give me a comparison? I'm like, shit, I don't have a week to do a comparison. So I get on there and I go, boom, could you do a comparison? I had a chart to him in like 5 minutes.
It's amazing. You do have to check for accuracy, by the way. Just do that.
But still, the shortcut, it's
coming. It's all just getting better, smarter. But it's wonderful, Michael.
And one of the things we've got on our.
Let me text. You can edit this part. You'll edit this out. Just give me 1 second here. I just have to tell these guys I'm running a few minutes behind. Okay.
Yeah, we won't be too long.
They keep them busy. I don't even know who's there. Okay.
One of the things we want to use AI for, because everybody says, oh, who hasn't ordered in 30 days or 45 or 90 days? We want to look at each customer's buying pattern to intercept when you should reach out to them based 100%. On their buying behavior and if they change velocity, right?
Well, if they stop buying, where'd they go?
Yeah, but what if they used to order for 30 people a week and now it's 15? What if they spent $20 a head and now it's $15 a head?
How about you and I? We should get in a room. How about
Go on.
How about we find the ones that haven't ordered in 6 months and we go find them on the internet and see if they've changed their jobs and then update their profiles and go out and reach out and send them a sample.
Yeah, and you know what? You could use this agent.
That's free.
You can use the agent.
Yes, the agent. This is where we're heading here. This is where we're heading.
Right. And honestly, we could probably ask ChatGPT, if you were going to mine data from a catering operating system to maximize sales, ask me all the questions you want and give me all the possible strategies that we can employ to increase catering sales, repeat sales.
Look, information, we can get all of it. The difficult part is the implementation of it, which is the hard part. So I think not for us. No problem for us, but I'm talking about for operators, like for them to take what we're making for them and implement it into their things.
So it's funny. We had this conversation at our, we do Traction EOS operating system, entrepreneur operating system. And I said, when we used to help restaurants get in the catering business, we did their menus and marketing and websites and all this. Nobody did anything, right? I said, we're building this badass CRM and all this stuff. I think we need to offer a service where we will do marketing as a service. It's like, we know you're not going to email your customers once a month. We know you're not going to call the inactive customers. We know you're not going to send out an email promotion to all the people who booked holiday parties last year. Let us just manage it for you. And then you just pay us a fee because you're going to get an ROI as opposed to it sitting there and nothing's happening.
Yes. Are you asking me or you're...
I'm just saying, but give me your opinion. Give me your opinion.
If I'm you, I'm going to find partners to help with that stuff, and I'm going to just double down on my tech and scale myself.
And just let somebody like
go make some partnerships. People like the Off-Premises Growth Academy or other. There's so many people that can go and help.
Hey, if y'all want to do it, let me know.
Well, listen, I'm building a bench of coaches, they all need work,
Right.
so like, I'm just trying to, I don't want to do the work.
Yeah, I don't
I'll
like
do
work
some
either.
work. Yeah, I'll do some of it, but I do the stuff I like to do, like I'm doing my advisory stuff, which I'm really enjoying that one-on-one with people. I'm going to do some workshops. I'll do some teaching, things like that. I'll probably write some more.
So, I know we're gonna do another podcast
Yeah,
about
let's go.
us getting involved in CaterLinked, and
Love to.
why don't you give everybody,
Yeah.
how do you get to CaterLinked?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So the latest sort of brainstorm or thought process is if we can create community, like we did a workshop, and the biggest thing that came out of it was people told us they need more time together in peer work. That was the big thing that came out, and they need to do it in a space that's safe and private, and where they can actually be free to share. That's what came out of it. So that was the birth of CaterLinked. And basically, we are firing up peer groups in that space. It's all digital because I wanted it to be affordable and accessible, frankly, because the feedback was, these events are too expensive and you got to get on planes and hotels. And the people that we're targeting, Michael, they don't have a lot of budgets for this stuff. Like, they just don't. So I was thinking, like, what is a no-brainer way we could do this? Gabriel and Terry are driving that community. And it's coming, every day we're seeing 2, 3, 4 more, slowly. We just had our first brand bring 10 people, which is cool. Of course, you've been very generous and you're supporting the community, and we're creating a zone for you to be able to have some conversations, and it's private for you. Nobody else can see it. So that's kind of the idea. And then the resource itself is to be a very rich resource in terms of content, in terms of education materials. I want to try and democratize and aggregate. Like, yeah, I have a lot of good stuff, but so do you, and so does TJ, and so does Sam, and so does Kelly Grogan, and so does everybody. And everybody's rowing boats in different directions. And I'm going to talk about these people as being the cream of the cream. It's not everybody. You know? There's a lot of people that are putting out stuff that are either copycatting or, frankly, it's not that good. And we don't want that stuff, So we are in a vetting process of qualifying.
And I appreciate that. Even though I'm a vendor, I'm more of a resource.
You're a very valuable resource.
And I appreciate that it's not a pitch zone, right? Like you're paying to pitch everybody, because nobody likes that, right?
You can pitch somewhere else. You can go to the shows and pitch all you want.
But this is what happens. Like when I went to your show in Denver, I just spoke educationally, right? And then people know the real deal from the non-real deal. They want to work with the real deal. That's the way it works.
That's the way to do it. And your customers speak for it. And you've been in years. Listen, I'm a big fan, Michael. So I really appreciate what you're doing, I'm rooting for you because, like, I had my win already, so I don't need it. I want you to get yours.
I need a big win so I can get my last place in Paris, France. That's the last place. I was born. Did you know I was born there?
No, but I got to jump to this other thing.
Go ahead. I appreciate your time.
Are we good?
We're going to cut out.
You've been listening to Restaurant Catering Smarts. For more insights and episodes, make sure to follow along, subscribe, and share at caterzen.com.